call is now being recorded.
All right, Ben Porcio, TopVelocity.net. Got a special guest on the line, Blake. Is it Treinen? Am I killing your last name, Blake? Treinen?
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Yeah, I got one of those names too. I can't pronounce. So yeah, I just love your story, man. I mean, it's amazing. It's cool that I get to you probably before everybody else does, even though I've read your story online already. You're really kind of making a name for yourself right now, so I'm kind of feel lucky that I can get you on the phone. So appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, no worries. It's it's an honor to talk to you. I know Jake spoke highly of you, and your track record speaks for itself. So it's an honor for me to talk to you as well.
Thanks, bro. Well, good. So where do we start? What I'm really interested in is, when you were that kid trying to, trying to get into this game and reach your potential. Just kind of start me somewhere in your life, wherever it was, wherever Jake. I guess I should introduce Jake too. So Jake is one of, the guys that have been with me in my programs before, or still in my programs, and we've gotten to know each other over the years. And he's a good guy, hard worker. He currently plays at Centenary University or Centenary College in Shreveport, but y'all kind of have a history together. Maybe y'all should just start from there. Talk about y'all's history together, and then maybe that'll evolve into your kind of story, Blake.
Yeah, well, Jake grew up like maybe 6 blocks away from me. So I know he was on the way to school. So I saw his house every day. And in high school, obviously everybody wants to, play college ball. And we're in a small town, and nobody could really give two stinks about baseball. And until, honestly, Jake kind of came around, and his dad started opening up, like, clinics in high school for us. And I remember Jake, being an 8th grader, just, like, running around the baseball field, helping us out and whatnot. And he always loved the game so much. And it's always, like, a fresh reminder that there are a few people that still really want to play baseball in Osage. So, I worked hard, and really what had happened is when I was real little, like my freshman year of high school, I played baseball. Didn't really enjoy it that much. I was like the only kid in my grade that went out, and kind of fell back on the scale of people catching up to you. And I was my potential was a lot lower, and everybody else was kind of exceeding above my talent level. And so I just didn't want to play baseball, and my weight got out of control. I was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis and borderline type 2 diabetes. And so I didn't play baseball my sophomore year. And I kind of had to just kind of get my body in shape and my health under control. And, at that point, my bone growth charts, I wanted to say were like that of a 13-year-old, a 13-year-old, and I was maybe a sophomore in high school, so it was like a couple of years off. And I remember that summer, I went out to San Diego to see my cousins, and they were huge on pushing a healthy diet, and then I would run every day, and then I carried it back into Kansas. In my junior year, I shot up to maybe 5'11", and I lost 40 pounds that summer, and just kind of rolled with it. And I went back out for baseball and had fun with junior and senior year, and didn't really have any opportunities to play. And so my mom was working with a lady at the radiology department at Newman Regional Hospital in Emporia, and her husband was a pitching coach at Baker University. So I went and tried things there, and they offered me it's more or less, I don't really want to say a scholarship because it's $24,000 a year to go there, but it was like $2,500 for the year. So, a little bit of money helps no matter what. So I did that. The toughest thing is they had a pitching coach, but he was gone the first half of the year. So, going into the season, we didn't have a pitching coach. The weight room, at the time I was there, they'd only had one, and it was being disinfected because it had staph infection. And so we didn't have a weight room to work out in the whole first semester of the year. And, you know, it's tough. Like how, you know, you go there thinking that you're going to, you know, put on weight and muscle and get stronger and faster. And just really wasn't the scenario I was hoping for. And the head coach is great. Phil Hannon's a fantastic guy. I still keep in contact with him. He's done like, you know, he's done some big things in my career. But the pitching coach at the time, I didn't really get along with. And not that he was a bad person by any means. It's just, you know, I just felt like maybe at that point in time wasn't necessarily the right guy for my career. Not to say that it wasn't for somebody else, but I didn't really get the help that I needed out of it, and I lost the passion for baseball. So that summer, I transferred to University of Arkansas and worked with a guy down in Fayetteville that my uncle knew, and tried to just, you know, get stronger and see what I could gain. You know, at that point, I kept growing. I was probably up to like 6'3" at this point, and I was just hoping that they would maybe like see my frame and maybe take a chance on me. And I was probably still like touching 83 at the time. Like it wasn't anything crazy. Because I know in high school I went to a K-State clinic and I was, you know, sitting 79, touching 83. And I mean, that was like max effort trying to blow up the gun. And that's how it was at Baker too. So that's why I transferred to Arkansas. So Baker doesn't have my major, and I'm not going to waste time here. I'm not going to make any gains in baseball. So I transferred and started my degree in landscape architecture. And when I got there, I went to the baseball offices and talked to the secretary, and, you know, she told me, yeah, you know, come back on this date, you know, and you can, you know, this is when you schedule time for a walk-on. So I was all kind of jazzed up and excited, and I come back on I don't remember if it was September or August, but it was like after the first week of school had started, or right around that time. And I walked in the office and I was like, you know, I'm here to, I didn't really know how it went. So I was like trying to stumble over my words. I was like, hey, I don't really know how to go about this, but I talked to you, you know, a while back when I was here from orientation about trying out for a walk-on. And she's like, hold on just a second. And so I'm sitting there and I'm waiting. And then a student, like a grad assistant coach, walks out and starts talking to me, and I was like, you know, I introduced myself and, you know, waiting to hear what time my walk-on tryout is, and he's like, yeah, man, I really don't think that we're going to do the walk-ons this year. And I was like, really? I was like, maybe just a little bit of time, like, you know, I won't take long at all. Like, I just want maybe just like a 15, 20 pitch pin. And he goes, nah, you know, we did that for everybody. If we did that for you, we'd have to do it for everybody. And that would be like the whole state of Arkansas. We just really don't have time to do that. And he's like, you know how many people want to be on this field? I was like, man, I was like kind of let down. It's like, well, is Dave Van Horn here? Because I played with a guy at Baker that had played under him his freshman year. And he's like, no. And literally at that time, he walks by. I was like, are you sure he's not here? Like, and he goes, no, he's on a recruiting trip. And he goes, and he walks into the room that says Dave Van Horn on it and sits down in his office. And I said, I know that's him. I was like, and I just talked to him. I was like, look, man, like, we really don't have time for this. We're pretty busy right now. And I just like walked out, and I was pretty crushed.
Yeah.
And so I just sit there and I tell myself that I'm going to do all the lifts they tell you you're not supposed to do in baseball, which at the time I was told, like, no bench press, like, be careful with how you lift your arms and your body. I was like, dump it. I'm going to just try to get overall stronger and try next year, see if they allow it. And if they don't, then baseball's over. And so I spent the whole first semester not picking up a baseball and just lifting and working out and doing my schoolwork. And about that time, I reached out to Jake and was telling him how much I missed baseball and wanted to see if I could maybe, you know, find a connection through him or his dad to play summer ball and get seen. And that's when Jake told me about this pitching clinic. And now, Jake, you can step in and talk about Don and how you guys got them down there.
Yeah, cool.
It was like when I was younger, my dad got real cool with the KU people, and They introduced us to these two guys, Don Ches and Mike Zagorski, and me and a couple of the guys would go do clinics and camps up there. Well, my dad got real cool with them and actually ended up getting them to come down to our hometown and give pitching lessons. And so every Saturday we'd go down there from like 6 to 9 at night and just work on pitching every single Saturday. And it might have even been Sunday too. And my dad has always known Blake like our whole lives. So he knew Blake, like he went to Baker and all that happened and the Arkansas thing. So my dad was just like, come on, dude, like, come out and try it out, you know, we'll see what happens. And that's when it all happened.
Yeah, I remember coming back, it was like a 3-day notice over Christmas break when it had happened. And I went down and picked up a baseball, and I was down there with my cousin Tanner, and I was just, which is like good friends with Jake, by the way. We were down there, and I picked up a couple baseballs, and I was throwing to this, like, tarp mat. And I was like, you know, warming up, and I was like, man, it's like pus coming out of my arm. I'm not even throwing hard at all. Like, you know, so much for these workouts, and then I'm getting loose, and I finally start to let it go a little bit. I was like, gosh, man, there's no shot somebody's going to, like, it's just going to be a waste of my time. And so I was throwing curveballs, like, trying to get a feel for just a couple things. And like, honestly, I thought that I almost didn't even think about, like, going down the next day and, like, seeing this guy. And I did anyways, just to see if he could give me some pointers. And, you know, I get up off the mound and I throw a little bit. And I remember the catcher at the time, was it CJ? Jake? Maybe?
Yeah.
For you guys?
Yeah.
It was the high school coach's son was the catcher. And he was catching me, and, you know, the ball came out fairly decent, fastball-wise, but the thing that was, like, really good, which completely shocked me, was my curveball. Like, I've always had a curveball, but it felt like it was, like, really late, and I was like, maybe that's the opportunity I get that he says, you know what, you have 1+ pitch maybe, and you can try to play college ball somewhere I can, you know, reach out. And so I worked him a couple times, and I asked him, and so did Jake's dad. He's like, you know, he wants to play summer baseball and try to get a look somewhere. Do you have any connections? And he said, you know, I don't have any connections, you know, to summer leagues. He goes, you'd have to do your own research on that. But I can talk to KU and South Dakota State and Fort Hays State. And at this time, I'm like, oh, KU'd be perfect. It's still on landscape architecture, and it's Division I, and it's close to home. And I'm a K-State fan through and through, so that's me biting the bullet because I love baseball so much. And I remember Donnie telling me, like, the next weekend, he's like, you know, KU can't offer you any money. And I was telling him, I was like, well, you can tell him I don't want money. You know, like, I just want a place to play. And he goes, but, you know, South Dakota State, they just turned D1. He's like, so, you can look into the degree thing. And, you know, what I'd set my goal on, I was like, I took it to the Lord, and I said, I will not leave Arkansas unless there is a Division I offer and a landscape architecture program at that school. And it's so funny because that year they had just bumped up to Division I baseball, and they had just gotten a landscape architecture degree. And so I was like, well, obviously God's opening the door for me. I'm going to leave Arkansas, and I'm going to, you know, see if South Dakota State will, you know, take me. And so Don took, like, a video of me and, you know, took some velo readings and reached out to Richie Price, which is the son of Rich Price at KU. And so, and he's like, yeah, you know, we'll extend a walk-on offer if you'd like to come up and play. And so I left Arkansas, and I walked on up there, and I don't think I realized as I invited to walk on how, like, thin your line is on staying on the team. But, you know, I got up there, I was like 85, 86, you know, maybe probably 84, 86. I'd gained a little bit. You know, I'd set goals for myself. I was like, all right, by the end of this year, you know, just try to be at 90. Next year, try to be like 90, 93. And next year, like 93, 96. See if that's like an accomplishable goal and give myself the best opportunity. So even if I fall short, like, I'm still in a decent range to give myself an opportunity to get drafted, because at this point, like, I'm really pursuing professional baseball, because why would I leave, you know, a top 5 school in landscape architecture where I'm having success in that degree just to chase a dream that it's just silly not to take it serious. And so that whole first year I had to redshirt, and I was in the weight room. And I went from 186 to like 205, 210 that year. I just put on all this weight, and I was strong, and, you know, always had bird legs, and my legs started to get a little bigger. And I went home over Christmas break and started throwing. I was like, man, this ball's coming out really good. Like, I'm excited to go back and get ready for summer ball, because obviously I can't play in the season. And I remember one of my high school coaches was telling me, man, it doesn't look like you're really trying to throw. I feel like you can get more out of it. He's like, really trying to throw this one now. Like, try to create some more arm speed. And so I go back. I was like the last day before I go back to school, and then my arm is hanging really bad. It hurts terribly. And my shoulder was so sore. Went and saw a doctor, and he said I had rotator cuff tendonitis. So I just sat for a month, and all I did was shoulder rehab and preventative stuff. And when I came back, our team had a like a rain out. So we did like a sim game, and I was the guy that threw. And it was the first time I remember like actually throwing fastballs by guys. And I mean, it wasn't just like, you know, a freshman on our team that I was throwing fastballs by. It's like, to me, it felt good because it was a guy who was an all-league player for us. And, you know, he's a good hitter. And I was, you know, it was like the eye-opener for me. Like, all right, now this is like your first stepping stone to get where you want to go. And then I go out that summer to play in Laramie, Wyoming, and a guy named Justin Wickert. I think he played some time at Cali County and then Oklahoma State. And he threw hard. Like, his thing was he was a velocity guy. And so I asked him, I was like, can you help me just gain some arm strength and some arm speed? And he's like, yeah, we'll go out and we'll long toss. And, you know, 2-3 times a week we'll bring it in and we'll play burnout at 60, just 6 to 10 throws, whatever you're feeling. Throw as hard as you can through me. And so we would play burnout with each other, and next season rolls around, and, well, I would say my senior year of college rolls around, and in spring ball, or fall ball, my bad, sorry. In fall ball, my first inning out, I was like 90-93, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, it's like I'm making the gains that this is like, it was crazy to me. And like, I understand like hard work is going to get you to places, but honestly, like, I have to give a lot of credit to God, because I don't know where like the gains
came from.
Other than that, I mean, because I see a ton of people work hard and doing the same things as me.
Right.
Like, to me, a lot of it goes to God, and I'm not taking anything away from the fact that, you know, He's given me opportunities, and I've had to work my butt off to get to where I am. But, you know, that year I went out and I had, you know, I was kind of like the last starter in the rotation, ended up going 7-0 and then in conference, and then lost it in conference tournament, and was drafted by the Marlins. I was really excited to go, and it was a 23rd round pick. And I signed my half of the deal, and I went down there waiting for them to sign theirs, and I took a physical, and they decided that my physical wasn't going to pass their exam. Like, they failed me on the physical and said that I had too much inflammation in my shoulder for them to want to take a risk. So when they sat me down, they said, you know, Blake, we have good news and bad news. And I was like, what? I was like, hopefully my arm's all right. I mean, apparently I don't feel like they're going to release me. They just drafted me. And so they're like, the good news is there's no structural damage or any signs of tears in your arm. But the bad news is there's too much inflammation for our doctors to want to take a risk, so we're going to have to part ways. Here's a ticket, and best of luck. And I said, well, am I allowed to still play college baseball? And they're like, that's not for us to decide, but there's a cab outside waiting for you. Like, all right. I break down. I'm, pretty emotional. Grab all my stuff. This is after, I've walked in the locker room. I've seen, my name on a jersey, and I'm pumped to, just be a part of, an organization.
Wow.
Get kicked out, and I call Richie, and I'm, breaking down, and he's like, you know what, did you have an agent? I said, absolutely not. And he goes, did you practice with the team? I said, no. I was unable to do anything until my physical had cleared, and he's like, well, I'm going to call so-and-so with our compliance office, and we're going to work things out. And so the one thing that we were worried about is that I would have to pay back the flight down there, the flight back to South Dakota, the hotel room. And what happened was I was there for under 48 hours and didn't have to pay anything back, but I worked that whole summer, didn't even play baseball at the university up there in South Dakota State, and did the only thing I did with my arm was preventative rehab again, just 3 days a week in there, just cranking out things, just strengthening my shoulder, and that next year I went from throwing 88 to 94, do 90 to 96 touch sevens, and I remember the first time I realized that it was, I feel like I had a lot to prove. And it really bothered me that the whole Marlins thing, to me, it felt like it put a red flag on my career for other teams wanting to take a chance. And what Nick Zinzande did for me was a fantastic thing, is he allowed me to sign a waiver for the Marlins. They could reselect me. And, he was a huge mentor through all of this for me, and was a great guy, and he's just a great person when it comes to scouting. And, he pretty much told me, if you sign this, it's gonna look better for you, and I want the best because I feel terrible with what happened. And so, after that, I had all my MRI copies, and teams would start calling in, and I'd send stuff out to them, and they'd send stuff back, and I would fill out my application forms for them. And I remember I was pitching at Iowa, and there was 30 scouts there, and I was like, this is insane. How is this happening to me? And I just remember just being so thankful for all the opportunities that have led up to that. And I don't know, it's just, I know a lot of people might not want the whole religious thing, but I feel like an opportunity that I'm given to talk about it. I just feel like it's crazy to see how faithful God is to his plan in people's lives, and how he was faithful to the plan in my life at that time. And he, whenever, that game was over, this is when people started to approach me. And by the end of the year, I had reached, a fairly, I guess, high status in the draft. And, I ended up being selected in the 7th round by Oakland, and then, their MRIs come around, and I'm getting nervous, and am I going to pass this MRI? And everything cleared, and things worked out. The first I had went really well, and then my first full season in Stockton was kind of mediocre, and my velocity dropped to 88, 91, 92, and just did not have what I had thought, what I'd always pitched with. And I was wondering if that was the end of baseball. I was like, what's going on? I'm getting hit. My velocity's down. I'm not the pitcher I used to be. And for some reason, the Nationals were in a trade with them, and they decided to select me as part of the bargain. I was just completely caught off guard. And it's probably the best thing to happen to my career, because coming over here, I've seen my velocity shoot up again and sustain up. And it's nothing, nothing short of just, a good throwing program, B, coaches that know what to say and how to manipulate individual players to get the best potential out of them. And, it's been a blessing in my career.
Wow, dude, that's an amazing story, man. It's crazy, actually. Yeah, it's just cool hearing that, and I think it's a testament as much to your faith, to you, man. You just never quit, and that's one thing you gotta credit yourself is, you stuck it in there. A lot of guys probably would have quit down that road. And I did an interview with Jim Morris from the movie The Rookie. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
Yeah.
The interview I did with him is really cool. It's very similar. I mean, I think other guys have had your experience. I had a similar experience on a smaller level, but, there's a lot of faith in it. I mean, if you listen to Jim's interview, it's a ton of faith in it. His story, it's a ton of faith. And you're right. I mean, some of these things that start happening to you are just, you feel like out of your control and even out of your potential. You're just blown away by it. But I think it has everything to do with just persistence. And I think that's a lot to do with where you are and, of course, what God gave you. But I think it's a testament to you that you're a hard worker and you don't give up, man. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
well, tell us some of the things, like, give us some, like, specifics. So when you were making those big jumps, and you said you're doing a lot of training, I always, since I'm a training guy, like, everything, so you talked about the throwing program you were kind of doing, the long toss to burnouts. Talk about your weight training. What kind of weight training were you doing at that time?
Well, honestly, we had a strength coach who wasn't necessarily baseball knowledgeable with how to lift baseball players, and so he would train us like football players, and there are pluses and minuses to it. We saw injuries across the board to pitchers. Like every year, I think we had somebody that came down with like Tommy John or a shoulder issue. I think it's knowing what your body can handle and knowing that you're doing the right form. Now, I feel like a lot of things, like I was a huge fan of power cleans and hand cleans and, squats. I hated squats, but I had to like grit through them. I did everything trying to get stronger and then more explosive. And I think strength is huge, but I think training to be explosive is even bigger because it's not like you're, hauling weight or anything in baseball. It's not like you're pushing weight. You're literally trying to be explosive. And so I think in everything you do is trying to be explosive. And
So what specific exercise in the list made you explosive?
I honestly like power cleans. We did like burnout circuit training with hang cleans and then squat like box jumps. So you do like we would do like a minute on hang cleans. So you just kind of pace yourself for a minute, and then the next minute straight of box jumps, and then a minute, and you go through as many reps as you can. Or wait, yeah. No. It's 10. It was 10 and 10, and you try to do as many as you can in 5 minutes.
You stay within your technique. I mean, did you focus on technique pretty hard?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's maybe not as much as I do now because that was like the South Coast State was the first time I'd ever started weightlifting, and you kind of just like, oh, I'm doing it right. Like I feel like I'm doing it right, But until you have somebody tell you, like, these are the muscles you should feel like tightening up. This is like what you should feel through this movement. Like going up to Eric Cressy, I guess. I don't know. I know you guys are kind of maybe competitors.
I like what he does. I mean, we promote the same thing, kind of, strength and explosive training. So,
listening to him and like his guys teach me how to actually like contract right muscles, it was huge for me. And just like as it would be, at your place or anywhere where somebody is knowledgeable about, like explosive weightlifting, and you guys are on the same page, is that, you shouldn't.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. I mean, a lot of guys.
Like explosive.
I mean, what do you say? What do you say to these old school coaches that are really trying to steer kids away from that? Because you seem to have such a big impact. I mean, it had a big impact on your career. I mean, what do you say to those kids that are having to fight coaches back when it comes to that kind of training?
Oh man, I don't know. I think you're your own. I mean, it's your own career. Whatever you feel like you need to be doing, you need to do. And if somebody tells you that, then you see other people with results. I say try something. If it doesn't work for you, then be your own judge. But I've seen a lot of gains, not just for myself, but also with another incredible story from somebody from South Dakota State and Caleb Fieldbar, who, long story short, he was drafted 18th round as a lefty, with the Brewers, made it up to low A, velocity dropped, got released, went to an independent team up in Duluth, got picked up by the Twins. But when he was in Duluth, he started hang cleaning, power cleaning, all these explosive lifts again. And his velocity went right back up. And so now, as his velocity went back up, he was able to get picked up by the Twins. Twins put him in high A, went from high A to double A, or went from high A to triple A the following year. The year after that, he started in triple A and made it to the big leagues. So now he's been in the big leagues his second year. And so he's another incredible story, but I like to say, look at what has happened with him, and I myself can only, testify that, strength training and not being so casual and, lenient to protect your body, because, pitching in baseball, it puts your body through a violent movement. So you're going to need strong muscles to protect your body. And for me, the biggest thing was learning how to have right form in a lift to help strengthen my core and my legs to sustain throughout the season. I'm not going to get that from just sprints or jogging and just plyometrics. I'm going to get that from lifting weight and pushing weight around. So
yeah, it's something. You can probably provide more insight on that. At the big league level, it's probably not as important to really go that hard because you're already there. But when these kids are being developed like you were through college, it's so critical to really get into that kind of even heavy load resistance training, because you're helping your body develop more explosively. And if you don't hit it then, when you tend to have more hormones in your body supporting that, you can kind of miss that window of opportunity to really, really reach your explosive potential,
I agree. And I think everybody's a little different in the aspect of knowing, like you said, when you're in the big leagues, you don't necessarily have to hit it so hard because you know yourself and what your body needs. I think there are certain guys in low A that know what their body needs, but they're not guys that stay there, that have been there for 3 years. They're guys that have been there and continue to move up. You can see when somebody has it figured out, there's just a sense of confidence. There's a sense of, those guys put together. You see it all the way around. And if you're not confident that your body is going to sustain, then you're going to try to fine-tune little things throughout your game. And I think you see it's as simple as say, hey, my shoulder's hurting today. I'm going to try to find that spot that doesn't hurt it. But then since your shoulder's weak, now your elbow might pay for it. So it's all about knowing what you need to do to I guess it's all about knowing how to prepare yourself for the season and knowing
because there's more to it. Right. There's more to it than just the lifting.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you're saying, there's many facets to this. There is the explosiveness to it. That's really what gives you your performance, but then you've got to be able to, you got to have the biomechanics. You got to have the mechanics to actually convert that and efficiently use that and not abuse your body in the process of throwing, every day.
Absolutely. And I think the one thing that I've learned, and this is the first year I've actually been able to stay on it, is through the minors, I've always worked really, really hard in the off season. Come season time, I try to tone down my workouts, and I'd almost be like, my body could use a rest. My body could use a rest. Well, then your body gets used to being rested and not pushing itself. And come late season, your body is getting pushed in to these violent motions again, and that's when I had the shoulder tendonitis. That's when last year I had my bulging disc. This year I have to stay on top of everything, and I do literally the day after I throw, I go in and I bust out a heavy full body or a heavy leg, and then the day after I throw my side, I go in and lift a heavy upper body, and it might be heavy for 1 set of 10 on 8-10 different lifts, but it's heavy, and I'm not maxing out or blowing out. I'm saying it's probably 70%, 80% of my rep time, and I'm going hard because I have to. I'm going to have 3 days of rest. That's plenty, and you have to.
Yeah, but you get such a bigger. You get such a bigger hormonal response from that helps you then heal everything up. Post start, after a game. So it's as much as you feel like, wait, my body's worn out from the previous start. That kind of training, that kind of heavy load, not over repping, but hitting those big muscle groups, legs, core, stimulates a hormonal response to heal, and then it goes in and heals everything. And if you don't do that because you think you're worn out or you're tired, then you're not stimulating that hormonal response, and then you won't actually heal as quick.
Yeah, now there's a difference too. You also have to know your body in the sense that,
Right.
if your hamstring is hurt or you're sore, sore is different than being hurt. Like if there's a little bit of pain and you're trying to rest yourself so that way it goes away by your next start, like say your shoulder has got a little pinch in it. That doesn't mean go out there and blow out like in a dumbbell bench, That doesn't,
right.
Maybe on those days you take it a little lighter, or you do some things to warm it up first. But you need to know, like, if you're just sore, you should be in there lifting hard. Like, you should be doing the things to prepare yourself. And that's what that's for me. Some people are different. Some people are, like, I've seen guys on our team up here that don't necessarily work out at all because their bodies, they know how to maintain them. That's just them.
Yeah.
But I would say as a whole, not everybody's
and
going to be
genetically driven.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like this is moderation. You're right. You're saying don't go. You got to be careful. You don't swing it too far one way because rest is important. If you're staying up all night, and you're not getting to sleep, you're not going. It doesn't matter what you're doing training wise. You're not going to heal. And then nutrition as well. And it's never one thing. But if you do tend to neglect one aspect of it, you really can see a change. Through. In everything. So you're right, it's a balancing act. And I think that's what credit to why you've gone so far in this game is because you're obviously incredibly intelligent. You obviously have learned so much about your body. You know how it works. How old are you? Are you in your 20s?
25.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. You know way more than I ever knew at 25. And I think that's why you've had so much success. And would you say the same? It's important learning this stuff, right?
The biggest thing that I learned at a young age is, and I've kind of carried it through, and you try the things that you see others having success with. So if you see,
right,
say you as a mechanic aspect, the biggest thing that I remember watching, Mike McDougal for Kansas City. This guy used to throw like 97 to 101. Just a tall, lanky closer. Made the All-Star team, and I was like, man, how's he throwing so hard? I was like, what's he doing? And he used to I remember he was tall, but he was such a drop and drive guy. I remember getting to the point where I would try to drop and drive to gain velocity, and I was like, man, that's actually helped me a little bit. So what else do I got to do? And I was like, clearly it's not just a drop and drive. And I think, honestly, I don't know how my shoulder and hip separation came into play, but it's one of those things that just happened for me. Like, I didn't have to think about it. It just happened, and that was kind of a huge blessing. But I think when you think about loading your scaps, it kind of happens naturally, which is so weird to think about. But if you, load your scaps, your hips, I just feel like it helps you. Because you're focusing on them staying in a certain position, your hips are going to go before. That kind of helps. That's something that I learned a little bit.
Yeah,
on my own. And
I think that's big. But I look at. Yeah, I look at your legs. I look how your legs move. For a guy like you, loading your scaps would work because you have incredibly fast legs, man. The problem is a lot of guys, obviously not your level, don't have that. They don't have that leg speed, that leg power. So they as much as they want to load their upper body or try to kind of rotate, stay closed, they still struggle with hip shoulder separation because those legs don't move. That back leg can't get through. And to me, I call it the elite move, the ability to get the back leg through as you go into front foot strike, get it extended. Is so challenging. It's the elite move. Only the fast elite guys in the lower halves are able to do it. But one thing I asked Jake the other day, I was like, what's his power clean max ever been? And he said 295. That's just incredible, dude. You don't meet a lot of guys who have that kind of lower body power. So you obviously have that elite power, and that's what you developed. And I think that's what really allows you with loading the scaps to be able to separate like that. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's so weird. I mean, might not make any sense to you. So in college, we only went by kilos, and I would power clean 130, but I could only squat 140 because my core was weak. Well, my form was bad. But when it came to being explosive and driving up, I was able to, get to that point where I could.
Yeah, well, there's
weight.
Yeah, that makes sense because squatting can get, very glute or, even hip dominant or core dominant. So you don't really you do have to have that with power cleans, but, most of your power comes at the top of the lift. So, it could be just you have really explosive, calves. You have really explosive lower leg. And you don't really get to use that as much in a squat. So it could be you're just really, you're probably a high jumper. I mean, how high is your vertical?
It was like 29.5 in college. I mean, I'm not like a super, I'm not gonna
well, for your body size, that's very good, though. I mean, for your body size being 6'3", what do you weigh?
225.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good. I mean, any guy who can hit, almost 30 inches at 225, 6'3", I mean, you're pushing a ton of power, and, a lot of that's going to be in that lower leg. And, I mean, I think, because even when I watch your mechanics, you don't really, in what I've seen so far, you don't really load, like, deep into your drive leg, like, into a lot of knee flexion. But your ankle kicks, when you come off your foot, it's just incredibly elite and fast. And, I don't know, these are just my impressions of you, but that's what I'm seeing.
No, I try to, I remember Jake probably learned this before I did, is this thing called triple extension. I never understood what it was.
That's my program, but yeah.
Maybe I, did it a little bit to begin with, but all I think about is, like, really getting out and driving through the plate. And you're talking about, like, throwing, guys that get their back leg through. I wonder if the mental aspect of telling yourself to throw through the guy, like drive your back leg through home plate, that might help with guys getting their hips through. I mean, it's tough.
It does. I mean,
everything. I'll tell you what. I mean, after a while, you just have to stay in the game long enough to make so much of your mechanics. I mean, because people are telling you a lot of little things like stay on the line, drive through the plate, arm up, like. Leave with your, point your cheek towards the plate, like all these little things. And after a while, it becomes muscle memory, and you don't think about all that anymore, and you just think about driving to this side of the plate, driving to the other side of the plate. I'm missing out, so I'm gonna sit back a little bit more and let my arm catch up. Like little things you learn.
Yeah, and not everything. Every day is different. I mean, every day, like what worked for you the other day usually doesn't work for you, on this day. So, you're right. Being able to adjust and know what your body needs and how it moves better is really key to your success. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody's different, and you look at guys who have less than, I guess, perfect mechanics, or guys that they say have perfect mechanics.
You want to provide any last words out there to
all I was
inspiring kids?
All I was saying is before, real quick, is that it doesn't really matter how your mechanics are. People say they're like the perfect, they're wrong or they're right. As long as you can repeat delivery and be explosive, you're gonna make gains. And I think ultimately, you'd asking for a point for young guys out there is don't let anything that people tell you hinder your desire to want to get better. You need to find internal motivation, and I will say that if you put your faith in something, greater than yourself, and I know a lot of people out there aren't necessarily religious, but I feel like there are things out there that can't be explained, and I feel like if you just work your tail off and you try to, you just honestly never give up and just grind it out, good things will happen to you. You just have to be willing to go after it, just like anything in life. Something you really want, you just have to continue to push and push and push. No matter how many doors are put in your way, you have to blow them up and tear them down and create opportunities for yourself.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that, man. you really got to be doing this for a purpose. You can't just be doing it for the money or doing it for
exactly.
your parents or anyone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, looking forward to watching you on TV, man. Kick some ass. So.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, man. See you, Blake.
Have a good one.